My name is Mitch Bone, president of the MSUB College Democrats and also a member of the Yellowstone County Democratic Central Committee. And today I am with candidate for U.S. Congress, Kathleen Williams. How are you doing today, Kathleen?
Great, Mitch. How are you? Good to see you again.
Yes, good to see you and doing really well. So I just want to start out this interview by telling us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for Congress.
Yeah, so I'm the daughter of a World War II veteran. My mother was from Blue Jacket, Oklahoma. She left there at age 18 to go west to work in the Navy shipyards, and the two of them met on the West Coast. The result was 4 girls. I'm the youngest. All us daughters were conscripted into piano lessons because my dad was a singer, and then also working in my father's general contracting firm as our first real summer jobs. So as being young, I had the opportunity and the fortune of being able to spend a lot of time outdoors in the summers. So from my family upbringing, I learned my love of music, my love of the outdoors, the importance of hard work, and the value of public service. So I have tried to take those values and work them into my life and my career. I've built a 37-year career in natural resources and conservation with a specialty in water, which when you work in water, you know that you've got to bring very diverse interests together and find really creative long-term solutions that meet everyone's interests. 3-term state legislator. I was legislative staff back in the 90s as well. And I'm running because I believe that this seat in Congress deserves fair, true, independent representation that is going to work for all Montanans, not special interests, and really just focus on solutions and what's best for Montana.
Awesome. So my first question is, Montana is a state that really needs healthcare. So what would healthcare look like to you if you were in Congress? What would you really want to push?
Well, we have a patchwork of a healthcare system, and everyone deserves access to quality, affordable healthcare. I've been working on these issues for a long time. Healthcare issues are personal to me. When I was 11, my mother started to lose her memory, and she'd be running errands, and she'd call and had forgotten how to get home. So I'd go out and find her on my bike and help her get home. And that was early onset Alzheimer's. And so I was a caregiver with my father from age 11 for 8 years until she passed away. So I know what a healthcare crisis can do to a family. I'm absolutely committed to resolving healthcare issues in Montana and making sure that no matter where you live, who you are, what your age, what your income, that we all have access to quality, affordable healthcare. I worked on healthcare issues in the Montana Legislature, passed a bill that prohibited insurers from denying routine cancer care to cancer patients. That is saving lives. Worked on quite a few other issues, surprise medical bills, discrimination in the individual market. We're trying to reduce that. And really, my proposal for fixing this system that we have is to protect the elements that are working in the Affordable Care Act, and then gradually fix this patchwork. So allow people 55 and older to buy into Medicare. That will lower costs immediately in Medicare and in the individual market. We need to allow Medicare to bargain for drug prices. That's estimated to save $11 billion a year that we can use to make sure that everyone has that access. We need to make sure that our community health center funds, which help with our rural health clinics and hospitals, are funded in the long run, along with the Children's Health Insurance Program. Those are often used as political footballs, and that's just unacceptable. And then we need to ensure that that mental health is included with any kind of talk about comprehensive health care. I always get surprised when people ask me that because I just always include it. So those are some of the ideas, and then there's more related to healthcare on KathleenForMontana.com.
Great. So my next question is related to our COVID-19 crisis that we are going through right now. What would be your plans to boost the economy of Montana that we've lost with the shutdown? And then also, what would you do for workers that have been laid off due to the COVID-19?
Well, so these are unprecedented times, right? We need a leader in Congress that has helped Montana get out of a crisis. I was elected to the Montana Legislature right after the recession, and I got to work right away, passing bills that created jobs and helped diversify the economy. So that's what we need in Congress. We need someone that can hit the ground running and knows how to craft and pass creative, focused, targeted legislation that's going to help the people that need it the most, the businesses that need it the most, and ensure that as we come out of this on the other side, which we will together, that we have both a solid economy, but potentially a new type of economy for the future. I've talked a lot about opportunities to address climate change by working to electrify our transportation grid. Imagine all the jobs for electricians and pipe fitters and construction in building charging stations and ensuring that we in Montana are ready for the energy consumers of the future. That's just one example. As far as the COVID response, to me, there's the direct relief response. We need to make sure that people that have lost their jobs have some way of putting a roof over their head, feeding their families, and working to figure out what their next chapter is going to be. So that we need to keep the unemployment safety net intact. We need to look at this payroll protection program for small businesses that is helping quite a few. We need to make sure, though, that when we put money into programs like that, that it's really targeted and that it's not going to, the folks that didn't need it. It's going to the businesses that really are going to be struggling without that kind of help. As I talk to businesses, as I call around to Montanans, there are some tweaks that we may need to do in that program, but I think those two things, the unemployment insurance and the PPP, have been helpful for Montanans in the immediate term. We need to, again, figure out how to use public dollars as wisely as possible, get them to the ground, to the folks that need it the most, and then make sure that we have something that I've been talking about for months, is testing. We need to be able to see what this virus is that we're trying to manage. And granted, there's been some good, really good work done on testing people with symptoms and then being able to trace their contacts and try and tamp down the rate of infection. But we need testing for people that have been exposed but maybe aren't showing the symptoms. We need testing for antigens for folks that may not be showing signs but actually do have the virus. We need testing for antibodies to test and learn what happens when you come out the other side of the virus and what level of immunity we have. I mentioned this in a question about business because how can we get back to business and patronizing our businesses if we don't know how safe we ourselves are? And we need to be able to manage ourselves individually and our businesses and make sure that we know enough to keep our neighbors safe and get the economy back up and running again.
Definitely. So you mentioned that you've been in the legislature, and I was just wondering what committees were you appointed to while you were in the legislature, and what was your most important bill that you got passed?
So when I was legislative staff back in the 90s, that's a nonpartisan position. I staffed the Natural Resources Committee and the Environmental Quality Council, which the mission for that council is advancing productive harmony between man and the environment, which to me is a great expression of what my entire career has been built around. So that was when I was staffing. Then 20 some years later, I had the honor of serving on those committees that I staffed back in the 90s. So in my 3 legislative terms, I was on the same major committees: taxation, which I vice chaired in 2015, natural resources, and agriculture, which I vice chaired in 2013. In addition to those main topical policy committees, I was also on the Rules Committee, which is the committee that really sort of are the experts and the decision makers on process in the legislature. And because I know how the legislature and policymaking works, I think I was a helpful addition to that committee. I was also a delegate. The legislature names 4 delegates, 1 from each party from each house, to an organization called the Pacific Northwest Economic Region, which is a US-Canadian trade organization. So I was honored to be the Democratic House delegate to that. I was also a member, the House Democratic member of the Reserved Water Rights Compact Commission, where I was directly involved with crafting, conducting public input on the Confederated Salish and Kootenai Water Compact, which is now in Congress.
Wow.
Carried that first bill in 2013 when we knew it wasn't going to pass, but we needed to start educating the legislature on it. I also was vice chair of the environment, agriculture and environment, I think it was, or environment and water, something like that, committee of the Council of State Governments, which is a regional organization that legislators and others are members of. So I was recognized and asked to contribute my leadership skills to a regional organization for legislators as well. There's probably others that I'm forgetting, but those are some of them. And then as far as major legislation, I mentioned the cancer bill that is saving lives. There was another one that I'm very proud of that was a local food bill that not only did we rewrite our food safety laws because I discovered they were such a mess when I was trying to write the cottage food bill, but the cottage food bill, which allows people to produce certain non-hazardous foods in a home kitchen and sell them, created over 200 new businesses and over 3,000 new Montana products in just 3 years. So I haven't even gone back and updated those numbers for over a year. So, and those businesses were all over Montana. And there were 3 created in Shoto alone. So really helped lots of folks across Montana kind of live their dream for Granny's salsa or whatever it was that they wanted to try and create, and it allowed them to try that without having to invest $200,000 in a commercial kitchen. So and it's been fun visiting with those new business owners and seeing their success.
Oh, I bet that's really neat to see that.
Yeah. So those are 2. Yeah, I created a new type of corporation in Montana that millennials and entrepreneurs are especially interested in, again, to try and help diversify and build our economy. And then a lot of the service in the legislature is not necessarily the number of bills you pass, but it's the what you contribute to the process. It's being leading by example on working with people of all political stripes and bringing diverse interests together and advancing, the needs of Montana. So it was a credible honor. I have a very warm spot in my heart for the legislature.
That's really neat to hear. So my next question actually has to do a lot with what you did in the legislature and just in your career in general. What would you do to combat the climate crisis that we are going through right now?
So we must hand down a livable planet to our children and grandchildren. It is our responsibility. I take that very seriously. Having a career in water, I've been on the front lines of climate change and observed the changes, whether it's earlier runoff or longer, more intense fire seasons, or as my friends in Ekalaka tell me, more tornadoes. And farmers of all people are some of the most astute observers of nature that I've ever met, and they're seeing the changes as well. So we need to make sure that we get ahead of this. Well, I'm not sure we can say get ahead of it anymore, but that we catch up, that we respond, and that we turn this around. So again, there's detailed proposals on KathleenForMontana.com. But number one, we need to get back into the commitments in the Paris Climate Accord. We're technically not out yet, but we need to recommit to that. We need to, as I've mentioned, we need to ensure that Montana is ready, for the energy consumers of the future. We want to make sure that, for example, I saw a news article that one of the companies that is withdrawing from the Colstrip investment is actually going to invest in wind in Wyoming. Why Wyoming? I mean, we need to make sure that that Montana is positioned for what we know is going to be a changing set of energy consumers in the future. We're already seeing it. Colstrip has been, the poster child for that changing market and changing consumer. So our transportation sector, at least before this pandemic hit, it is the #1 generator of greenhouse gases in the US. So I believe that we could create all kinds of economic opportunity in starting to transition to electrifying our transportation system. So there'd be new manufacturing, there would be new construction, there would be new technology. We need to solve the bottleneck in battery storage technology. There's a firm here in Montana in Columbia Falls that has been working on battery technology that is not only creative, but it's also cleaner because it and more socially acceptable because it doesn't use lithium. It's a zinc-based battery storage technology. So once we break through on battery storage, then renewables will be much more practical and can be firmed, as they say in the utility industry, and we really need to make that breakthrough. So, and then I feel like the agricultural sector has been a little bit left behind on bringing folks together on climate change response. And there are scientific papers that indicate, and I need to do some more research on this, but indicate that an active soil health improvement program in our agricultural sector could actually capture or sequester more carbon than the transportation sector emits. So if we can find a way through the Farm Bill or otherwise to help farmers and other land managers, our stewards in our agricultural sector, diversify their incomes by having a new crop, which is basically carbon sequestration, then I think it's a win-win all around. And we bring in a very important sector, both for Montana and for the nation, in helping solve this problem. So yeah, those are just a few of the ideas.
Yeah, that's really interesting, all those different things. I didn't know the battery plant in Montana. That's really cool to hear.
Yeah.
So my final question here is, as a college student, I've had friends that have graduated and they either aren't getting jobs in their field or they've had to move away from Billings to get a job in their field. So in Congress, how would you be able to help those that graduate have a chance of getting their preferred job in Montana and maybe even in the town that they went to college in or are from?
Well, that should be our goal for every graduate, right? Whether you're graduating from a four-year college or whether you're graduating from vocational training in high school, or whether you've got an internship or a apprenticeship with a union or otherwise, or whether two-year college is more your choice. So we need to make sure that there are opportunities. And holy cow, this pandemic has really hit certain sectors so hard, where we had issues with that before, and now they've been absolutely aggravated. So we need to rebuild our economy, right? We need to, as we do it, we need to make sure that we are doing really good assessments of workforce needs in the future. There's some great examples of both ensuring that people that are already trained in the community can be put to work in sectors that are especially needed, but that also our educational system is aligned with our workforce needs. I know our two-year college here in Gallatin has been very active with workforce needs assessments, and as an example, we have a laser industry here in Bozeman that, I don't think many people know that, but it's second to the laser industry that I think is in Tucson or somewhere in Arizona.
Wow.
But they had a shortage of qualified workers, and so the two-year college here started training more people to be able to enter that career and stay in Bozeman and make good money and support the growth of that sector. So we need to make sure that our educational systems are well aligned to the jobs of the future and the economy of the future. And then I think there's been quite a very successful focus on STEM, which, but I'd like to talk about STEAM, where we make sure that it's not only creating the technical jobs of the future, but that we have a rich cultural life of arts and
Yes.
and ensure that people that's what they love have an opportunity to be creative and all of us to benefit from their talents. So in Congress, it's getting our economy back on our feet again, and again electing someone who's done it before when we came out of the recession last time, who's a real opportunist when it comes to policy and targeting effectively public dollars where we can. Our businesses are incredible leaders. We need to foster innovation and entrepreneurship and help those small businesses get started and survive. There's lots of economic development programs that I'm interested in supporting. And then anytime I hear a good idea, I want to hit the ground running on it. I heard about a company when people were complaining and expressing to me their just strong frustration with the price of insulin, a drug that people need to live,
Yep.
and how out of reach some of the prices had become. I heard about a company in Canada that had actually figured out how to, and maybe there's some GMO issues here, I don't know, but they had figured out how to grow safflower that could be processed and create insulin from it.
Wow.
And so I mention this because this is sort of my way of thinking, is that when someone says they're sacrificing food and utilities to pay for their insulin, my first thought is, how do you make insulin, right?
Mhm.
Can we make insulin in Montana? And so that's an example. I started talking to some agricultural oriented venture capital firms to see if we could figure out how to bring this technology to Montana and how to evaluate it, if it's safe, and see if we could actually grow and produce insulin, which according to this company, the growing, the harvesting, the processing results in insulin costs that are lower than the commercial costs. And that was at least 4 or 5 years ago when they were active. So yeah, let's find those solutions and give me ideas and I'll run with them.
That would be great. So for anybody that hears this and wants to get involved on your campaign that isn't already, how can they do that?
They can go to the website, Kathleen4montana.com, all words, all spelled out. There's a I want to help tab or get involved tab where they can sign up to be a volunteer. You can sign up to be on the mailing list. We have lots of great volunteers already that are making phone calls, and we're a big family. So come join us, and we have a lot of fun. And once we can get back safely, get back out on the road, we'll be recruiting more. So so we'd love to have you involved, and please get in touch. And ballots are out, so I'd be honored to have your vote for Kathleen Williams for U.S. Congress, both now and in November.
Thank you so much, Kathleen, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Mitch, and thanks to the Yellowstone County Dems for getting the word out.
Yes.